A Hollywood legend walks onto set. The script is written. The role is perfect. And then, without warning, the director fires them. Not quietly, but explosively. Quentin Tarantino doesn't fade people out. He erases them. For 3 decades, he's built a cinematic empire on precision, loyalty, and absolute control. Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, Django Unchained, each film a masterpiece of style and fury. But behind the genius lies a hard line. Cross it, and you're not just replaced. You're rewritten out of history. Some were too volatile, others too famous. A few dared to challenge his authority. The reasons vary, but the result is always the same: permanent exile from the Tarantino universe. No second chances, no reunions, just silence where collaboration once lived. If you want more untold stories about Hollywood's hidden conflicts and creative battles, subscribe now. Because what happens behind the camera is often more dramatic than what makes it to the screen. Lawrence Tierney, the noir legend who became ungovernable. Lawrence Tierney arrived on the set of Reservoir Dogs carrying decades of cinematic weight. A stone-faced icon from Hollywood's noir era, he embodied the kind of menace Tarantino worshipped. Casting him as Joe Cabot seemed like destiny, until reality shattered the illusion. Behind the scenes, chaos followed Tierney like a shadow. Lines vanished from his memory. Crew members became targets of his unpredictable rage. Arguments with Tarantino erupted without warning. During one infamous incident, a disagreement over blocking a scene escalated into a screaming match. Tierney stormed off set. Tarantino followed him outside and fired him immediately. Later, the director would describe the experience as dealing with someone deeply unstable. Other cast members confirmed the nightmare. Michael Madsen recalled how Tierney's presence poisoned the atmosphere. Every shooting day became a gamble. Would they complete a scene before the next explosion? Tarantino was 29, directing his first feature, building his vision frame by frame. He'd written the role specifically for Tierney, but when toxicity replaced collaboration, he made a choice. The emotional severance happened long before filming wrapped. No hesitation, no sentimentality. After Reservoir Dogs became a cultural phenomenon, Tierney's name disappeared from Tarantino's narrative entirely. No retrospective interviews mentioned him. No tributes acknowledged his contribution. The director had erased him not just from future projects, but from memory itself. For Tarantino, certain lines aren't drawn in sand, they're carved in concrete. Cross them, and exile is permanent. Tierney had crossed that line, and the distance that followed was absolute. Bruce Willis, the comeback king who never returned. Pulp Fiction resurrected careers and redefined independent cinema in 1994. For Bruce Willis, it offered salvation. His recent films had bombed critically. Color of Night, Hudson Hawk, Striking Distance. Then Tarantino handed him Butch Coolidge, and suddenly Willis mattered again. But something fundamental never aligned between director and star. Willis arrived with Hollywood's swagger and improvisational instincts honed across decades of action films. Tarantino demanded precision. Every word, every pause exactly as written. The rhythm had to be perfect. Willis, accustomed to dominating sets and reshaping dialogue, didn't naturally submit to such rigid control. Crew members noticed the tension. Tarantino reportedly found Willis too self-aware, unable to disappear into roles the way actors like John Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson did. While those performers became lifelong collaborators, appearing across multiple Tarantino films, Willis remained isolated, present for one project, then gone. Years later, when Tarantino discussed the Pulp Fiction ensemble, he praised nearly everyone except Willis. Not with open hostility, but with something colder. Erasure. The star's name simply didn't appear in the director's reflections. Willis, always diplomatic, never criticized Tarantino publicly. But he also never spoke of the film as the career-defining moment it clearly was, something most actors would celebrate forever. In Tarantino's universe, loyalty earns legacy. Deviate from the rhythm, and you vanish. Willis illuminated one brilliant performance, stole iconic scenes, then disappeared from the director's world as completely as if he'd never existed there at all. For a filmmaker who recycles his favorite actors like repertory company members, absence speaks louder than any public feud ever could. George Clooney, the movie star, who wasn't dangerous enough. George Clooney and Quentin Tarantino should have forged a lasting partnership. From Dusk Till Dawn gave Clooney his first major post-ER film role and let Tarantino unleash his genre-blending instincts. The vampire crime hybrid became a cult phenomenon. But their collaboration ended there, and the reason eventually went public. Years later, Tarantino delivered a blunt assessment in an interview. He stated flatly that Clooney wasn't a movie star. No qualification, no diplomatic cushioning. He challenged people to name truly great Clooney films from the 2000s onward. Clooney responded with controlled irritation, defending his body of work. Ocean's 11, Syriana, Michael Clayton. These weren't insignificant efforts, but the damage transcended any factual debate about box office success or critical acclaim. Tarantino's dismissal revealed a deeper philosophical divide. He values actors who vanish completely into roles, who bring danger and unpredictability to every frame. Clooney represented something else, polished, bankable, charismatic, but never raw. Never the kind of performer who fits naturally into Tarantino's universe of vengeance, violence, and psychological darkness. After From Dusk Till Dawn, Clooney never appeared in another Tarantino project. Not a cameo, not a supporting role, not even rumors of consideration. For a director who repeatedly casts the same actors across decades, building a stable of reliable collaborators, this absence speaks volumes. Clooney's career soared independently. Oscars, directorial success, franchise stardom. But his name vanished from Tarantino's vocabulary entirely. When pressed about the relationship in subsequent interviews, the director offered only silence and faint traces of disdain. In Hollywood, where relationships function as currency, Clooney became just another name Tarantino edited from the final cut. Not through explosive conflict, but through something colder, dismissal. Spike Lee, the public war over storytelling and race. This wasn't creative disagreement. This was ideological warfare conducted through interviews, condemnations, and ultimately permanent separation. Spike Lee has never been one to remain silent when he sees injustice or problematic artistry. When Jackie Brown premiered in 1997, Lee took direct aim at Tarantino's use of racial slurs. He acknowledged using such language himself in his own films, but argued that Tarantino exhibited an unhealthy infatuation with particular words. He questioned what Tarantino was trying to prove, whether he sought some form of honorary acceptance. Tarantino's response was characteristically blunt and uncompromising. He defended his artistic choices and told Lee to be silent using explicit language. He argued that no artist has the right to dictate another's creative expression. The conflict intensified years later when Django Unchained arrived. Lee condemned the film without watching it, calling it disrespectful to his ancestors. Tarantino's counter-response was devastating. He suggested Lee was simply angry because Tarantino was creating better films about black experience than Lee could manage himself. That wasn't disagreement. That was mutual disrespect crystallized into permanent enmity. Neither man has apologized. No reconciliation has occurred. Examining Tarantino's entire career reveals collaboration with nearly every type of performer except anyone from Lee's artistic circle. They don't appear on panels together. They don't offer mutual praise. Their paths never intersect professionally or publicly. Tarantino's claim that Lee was jealous of his superior filmmaking didn't just offend, it made reconciliation impossible. Two titans of American cinema, both operating at the highest levels of their craft, exist in completely separate universes. The divide isn't professional. It's philosophical, personal, and apparently eternal. Steve Buscemi, the loyal actor who got one shot. Steve Buscemi helped launch Tarantino's directing career. As Mr. Pink in Reservoir Dogs, he delivered one of independent cinema's most iconic performances, the tipping rant, the paranoid energy, the desperate survival instinct. But after that breakthrough role, something strange happened. Buscemi, despite his talent and early loyalty, quietly disappeared from Tarantino's world. The most persistent theory involves the film's famous opening scene. Mr. Pink's refusal to tip waitresses, his argument that society doesn't expect gratuity for certain service jobs, wasn't just scripted dialogue. According to crew members, Buscemi had expressed similar views during production. Tarantino reportedly took the stance personally. Years later, the director allegedly joked that if Buscemi wanted back into his films, he'd have to play a waiter. That role never materialized. When asked why Buscemi wasn't considered for Pulp Fiction or Kill Bill, Tarantino offered a cold response. Sometimes people get one shot, and that's the complete story. The answer feels particularly harsh considering how many other Reservoir Dogs actors became regulars. Michael Madsen, Tim Roth, both appeared in multiple subsequent films. Buscemi never complained publicly. He built an extraordinary career independently. Fargo, Boardwalk Empire, countless acclaimed performances. But fans noticed his complete absence from Tarantino's later casting considerations. For a director famous for resurrecting and reusing favorite talents, that silence carried meaning. In one brief interview, Buscemi acknowledged the distance simply. He hadn't heard from Tarantino in years, but wished him well. Polite, diplomatic, and utterly final. In Tarantino's universe, some grudges don't explode dramatically. They fade slowly, quietly, until one actor's name vanishes from the casting board and never returns. No confrontation, no explanation, just absence where collaboration once existed. Warren Beatty, the legend who tried to direct the director. Warren Beatty was almost Bill. Not just any Bill, the Bill in Kill Bill. Tarantino had written the role specifically for him, tailoring the character's poetic menace and tragic complexity around Beatty's legendary presence. It should have been a triumphant collaboration. Instead, it died before a single frame was captured. Beatty and Tarantino met. They discussed the character extensively. They mapped out Bill's philosophy, his relationship with the bride, his inevitable fate. But creative control became the breaking point. Beatty wasn't just an actor, he was an accomplished director himself. He offered suggestions, edits, tonal adjustments. He wanted input on shaping the character and possibly the broader narrative. Tarantino couldn't tolerate it. He was crafting a revenge opera, not hosting a collaborative workshop. According to David Carradine, who eventually inherited the role, the tension escalated quickly and absolutely. Beatty was attempting to direct the director, and Tarantino doesn't negotiate on such matters. Tarantino never publicly attacked Beatty, but his silence communicated everything necessary. When asked about the casting change in interviews following Kill Bill's release, he offered only vague explanations. It wasn't going to work. He needed someone who understood the story wasn't theirs to shape. That quote revealed his fundamental philosophy. Every scene, every word, every editorial decision belongs to him exclusively. Beatty's suggestions weren't welcome contributions. They were threats to authorial control. The part was quietly stripped away and given to Carradine. No press announcements, no explanation, just replacement. Carradine later recalled that Tarantino seemed energized after severing ties with Beatty, as though a burden had lifted. Beatty never spoke publicly about the situation. No bitterness, no statements, just absence. They've never worked together since, never appeared together publicly, never crossed orbits professionally. In an industry built on second chances and redemptive collaborations, such clean, permanent breaks are remarkably rare. Daryl Hannah, the action star who clashed behind closed doors. Daryl Hannah brought fierce physicality to Kill Bill, playing Elle Driver with venomous intensity. On screen, she was perfect, cold, dangerous, unforgettable. But behind the scenes, tension simmered between Hannah and Tarantino that never fully resolved. The friction reportedly centered on preparation and interpretation. Hannah had trained extensively for the role's physical demands, bringing her own ideas about Elle's psychology and fighting style. Tarantino, as always, had precise visions for every moment. When their approaches conflicted, neither easily compromised. Crew members recalled moments of visible tension during rehearsals. Hannah questioned certain choices. Tarantino bristled at challenges to his authority. The film was completed successfully, and Hannah's performance remains iconic, but the working relationship left scars. After Kill Bill wrapped, Hannah never appeared in another Tarantino project. More tellingly, when discussing the film in retrospective interviews, Tarantino lavishes praise on Uma Thurman, Lucy Liu, and even minor supporting players, but rarely mentions Hannah's contribution with the same enthusiasm. Hannah has spoken diplomatically about the experience when asked, acknowledging Tarantino's talent while subtly suggesting the collaboration was challenging. She's never pursued reconnection, and Tarantino has never reached out for subsequent films. In Tarantino's world, chemistry matters as much as talent. An actor can deliver a perfect performance and still find themselves exiled if the personal dynamic doesn't align. Hannah proved she could execute his vision flawlessly, but something fundamental never clicked between them. The result isn't dramatic public warfare. It's simply absence, no reunion, no consideration for future roles, just professional distance that speaks to an incompatibility beyond mere creative differences. Sometimes in Tarantino's universe, even success isn't enough to guarantee return. Ving Rhames, the powerful presence who disappeared. Ving Rhames commanded the screen as Marcellus Wallace in Pulp Fiction. His presence, intimidating, complex, unforgettable, anchored the film's criminal underworld. The role should have launched repeated collaborations. Instead, Rhames became another casualty of Tarantino's selective loyalty. The reasons remain somewhat mysterious. Unlike other conflicts that became public, the Rhames situation stayed largely behind closed doors. No explosive arguments made headlines. No philosophical disputes played out in interviews. Just gradual, unexplained distance. Some industry insiders have suggested the issue involved professional expectations. Rhames, after Pulp Fiction's massive success, became a sought-after character actor with increasing leverage. He may have expected certain treatment or compensation for future Tarantino projects that the director wasn't willing to provide. Others speculate about on-set dynamics that never fully aligned. Tarantino demands complete commitment and submission to his vision. Rhames brought powerful physical presence, but may have approached roles with an independence Tarantino found challenging. Whatever the cause, the outcome was clear. After delivering one of Pulp Fiction's most memorable performances, Rhames never returned to a Tarantino film. No cameos in Kill Bill, no consideration for Django Unchained or The Hateful Eight. Complete absence from a director who routinely recycles his favorite performers. When Tarantino discusses Pulp Fiction's legacy, he celebrates Samuel L. Jackson's career-defining work and John Travolta's resurrection. Rhames receives acknowledgement, but without the warmth reserved for true collaborators. Rhames has never publicly criticized Tarantino. He's built an extraordinary career independently. But fans who expected to see Marcellus Wallace's unforgettable presence return to Tarantino's universe have been left waiting indefinitely. Sometimes exile doesn't require dramatic conflict, just quiet, permanent separation that no one fully explains. Eli Roth, the protege who became expendable. Eli Roth seemed destined to become Tarantino's chosen successor. The younger director worshipped Tarantino's work, and their collaboration on Inglourious Basterds, where Roth played the bat-wielding Bear Jew, appeared to cement a lasting bond. Tarantino championed Roth's films publicly, praised his understanding of genre cinema, and seemed genuinely invested in his career. Then something shifted. The exact breaking point remains unclear, but the warmth evaporated. Tarantino stopped mentioning Roth in interviews. No more public endorsements, no casting in subsequent films. The mentorship that once seemed permanent simply ended. Industry speculation points to artistic disagreements. Roth's directorial work, torture-heavy horror films like Hostel, may have eventually troubled Tarantino, who, despite his own violent aesthetics, maintains specific philosophical boundaries about on-screen suffering. Others suggest Roth's increasing independence and unwillingness to remain a perpetual student created friction. There's also the possibility that Roth's acting in Inglourious Basterds didn't meet Tarantino's exacting standards. While the performance was memorable, some critics noted it lacked the depth Tarantino usually demands. He may have concluded Roth was better behind the camera than in front of it, but not good enough behind it to warrant continued association. Whatever caused the rupture, the result was unmistakable. Roth hasn't appeared in Tarantino's work since Inglourious Basterds. When Tarantino discusses protégés or influences on contemporary cinema, Roth's name no longer surfaces. Roth has continued building his career successfully, but without the powerful Tarantino endorsement that once seemed guaranteed. The relationship demonstrates how even apparent chosen successors can find themselves outside Tarantino's circle if something, anything, disrupts the delicate balance of loyalty, talent, and submission he requires. Apprenticeships in Tarantino's world aren't permanent. They're conditional, and the conditions remain known only to him. Don Johnson, the veteran who didn't fit the vision. Don Johnson arrived on the set of Django Unchained carrying decades of television stardom. Miami Vice had made him an icon. His later career had maintained steady work and respect. Tarantino cast him as Big Daddy, a plantation owner who leads a nighttime raid, a brief but memorable role. The collaboration appeared successful. Johnson delivered the performance professionally. The scenes worked. But something fundamental didn't click between actor and director, and Johnson never returned to Tarantino's universe afterward. Unlike more dramatic conflicts, this separation seems rooted in simple incompatibility. Johnson's acting style, smooth, television-trained, relying on charm and presence, didn't match Tarantino's preference for actors who bring raw, unpredictable energy. Johnson was professional where Tarantino wanted dangerous, polished where the director craved rough edges. Crew members noted Johnson was thoroughly professional but somewhat detached from the intensity Tarantino cultivates on set. While other Django Unchained actors like Christoph Waltz and Samuel L. Jackson immersed themselves completely in Tarantino's world, Johnson approached the role as a job, competently executed but without the obsessive commitment Tarantino values. After Django, silence. No consideration for the Hateful Eight. No cameo possibilities discussed. Johnson's name simply disappeared from Tarantino's casting conversations. Johnson himself has never commented on the absence of further collaboration. He's continued working steadily, recently experiencing a career resurgence. But for Tarantino completists who track recurring actors across films, Johnson stands as an example of someone who did everything correctly and still found himself outside the inner circle. Sometimes in Tarantino's universe, competence isn't enough. He doesn't want professionals executing assignments. He wants believers surrendering completely to his vision. Johnson was the former. Tarantino needed the latter. The difference meant one appearance, then permanent exile, not through conflict, but through simple, final disinterest. Quentin Tarantino's career reveals a fundamental truth about uncompromising artistry. Greatness often requires ruthlessness. 10 actors, some legends, some rising stars, found themselves exiled from his cinematic universe. The reasons varied: creative clashes, philosophical differences, simple incompatibility. But the pattern remained constant. 3 insights emerge from these fractured collaborations. First, talent alone guarantees nothing in Tarantino's world. Bruce Willis and Warren Beatty were proven stars, yet both found themselves permanently excluded. Second, Loyalty must be absolute and unquestioning. The moment an actor challenged Tarantino's authority, whether through on-set behavior, public criticism, or creative suggestions, exile became inevitable. Third, chemistry transcends performance. An actor can deliver perfect work and still vanish if the personal dynamic doesn't align. These exiles weren't career-ending. Most actors continued building successful careers independently, but they lost access to something unique, participation in one of cinema's most distinctive visions. Tarantino creates films that become cultural touchstones, and his recurring actors achieve a particular kind of immortality. Those who cross his invisible lines sacrifice that legacy. Behind every masterpiece lies sacrifice, sometimes from the artist, sometimes from those around them. Tarantino's genius comes with a cost, and these 10 actors paid it in full. If this glimpse behind Hollywood's creative conflicts resonated with you, subscribe for more untold stories about the battles that shape the films we love. And share your thoughts below. Were these exiles justified, or does artistic vision have limits? The conversation continues in the comments.